Greetings. Apparently, most of you tested me yesterday, congratulating us, we Ghanaians, for having a peaceful election. And some of you were expressing um, some sort of joy, seeing how the Ghanaian youth really made sure this election was very peaceful and transparent. And some of you were actually lashing out at your leaders for always engaging in electoral malpractices to enrich themselves in power and also entrench themselves in power as well. One thing that I want to put across is that there's a wind of change currently blowing across the African continent, where most of the youth are actually angry at the system that have been created with the sole intention of keeping the poor very poor and making the few very rich at the expense of the masses within their respective countries. That wind is actually blowing across the African continent, where the youth are currently fed up with the leaders engaging in all sort of corruption. One thing that you need to bear in mind is that if you want to change, the people who are being ruled must come together to demand for that change. If you look at the election that was held in Ghana, you realize that the youth were actually in for a change. They were not leaving any stone unturned. For the first time in our history, in our political dispensation, we realized that most of the youth were actually on the electoral grounds, ensuring that all the laws and all the procedures that are being employed in the conduct of election is being respected by the authorities, making sure that making sure that they are not creating any avenue for anyone to engage in all sort of stealing. This message go out to all the youth in most of these African countries that if you want a change, if you want to make sure state institutions will work very well, then the people must, in one way or the other, put aside their selfish interests. It must be a collective work, ensuring that the greater needs and the interests of the people are rather considered at the expense of individual interest. It must interest you that as at 1 a.m. and 2 a.m., most of the youth were actually on the coalition centers, the district, or let me say the constituency coalition centers, ensuring that even in the dark, results were being counted in a transparent order. So you don't sit aloof, you don't sit quiet expecting the greedy people, the corrupt people, those who don't want the betterment of the continent to make a change. When you yourself, you engulf yourself in fear, you tend to be coward, you decide not to call for that change. If you call for a change, it must take an action. You cannot sit at one place, fold your arms, and expect that the few people who are in authorities, who are actually enjoying, are going to make the change for you. Never. It's not going to happen. And one thing that we have to also realize that sometimes we need to put aside our partisan affiliations and always ensure that the nation or Africa will be great. Yes, Aristotle once said that every human being is a political animal. I side with him. No one will ever say that I am neutral. It's never true. Me being the admin and the founder of this page, in one way or the other, when it comes to Ghana, so long as we are holding election, I take sides. There's a favorite. I have my favorite candidate, but that does not mean that I should be blinded by my partisan affiliation, or I should be blinded by the fact that I like a certain candidate in an election. And so when something is going wrong, I should keep quiet. No, as someone who has gotten this platform, I have to use it to make sure that it will create an avenue for the voiceless in the society. Maybe some people cannot voice out because they don't have the opportunity or the means. I am fortunate to have this platform, and so that is what I need to do. It's unfortunate when it comes to Africa, most of the youth, when their parties loses election, their only prayer is that the new government should fail woefully, forgetting that when things are wrong in the country, it does not affect the newly elected government supporters. It affects everybody. That is our major problem in Africa. Everybody is thinking about their selfish interest to the neglect of the general interest of the people. Wherever that you are, wherever that you find yourself watching this, I want you to be an epitome of change, an element of change, be part of that wind that is blowing across the African continent, ensuring that we put all these people behind where they must find themselves. Those that they are enriching themselves at the expense of the people. We have to come against them. We don't have to side with them because we feel like they are in our parties, because we feel those people are people who we actually admire because our party is in power. No, a true Pan-Africanist will never keep quiet when corruption is being prevalent in government places, when corruption... We currently find ourselves in a situation where people seem to be normal. Public servants engaging in corruption, when people hear about it, oh, it's a normal thing, they are stealing, it's a normal thing. The moment that a country gets to such a state, it means that that country has gotten to a stage where, I don't know how I'm going to describe it, but it makes it very difficult for the life of the people, because everybody wants to use every means possible to enrich themselves. And I pray that that wind of change that is actually or currently blowing across the African continent will come through every country in Africa. We must not keep quiet. If you tend to be quiet, if you tend to support these politicians stealing millions of dollars from state coffers to the neglect of the people, then it means in one way or the other, you are a direct beneficiary of this corruption, or you are just being a hypocrite, or you are just being a nation wrecker who doesn't want your country and Africa at large to progress. That is the current crop of people we have. Some people are very hypocritical. They don't I don't even know how to describe them, but I know definitely in 10 years time, in 15 years time, that wind is going to be very strong across Africa. And those that are causing havoc on the continent, most of the time we tend to blame the whites. Most of the time we tend to blame the whites, forgetting that we are our own enemies as well. We tend to defend politicians who are stealing millions because we feel like it is going to make our political parties unpopular. If you allow yourself, if you allow your conscience to be crowded by politics, then it means you as an individual, I don't intend to disrespect anybody, you are thinking like an animal, because these politicians don't have anything better to offer the electorate. They only think about the electorate when it is time for accountability. They think about the electorate when it is time for election. That is when they only think about the electorate. So think.